on SCTV's Midnight at Dawn triple feature, we are proud to present 3 action-packed thrillers.
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity, where we talk about political culture, pop culture, movie culture, drinking culture, and anything else that comes up. Joining me as always today is Brandon.
Hello, my people.
Jim.
Hello, everybody.
And Kale.
Hi.
We got kind of an interesting topic we're going to talk about today, and we're probably going to talk about 3 or so examples per on this. And this is triple features. So this is 3 movies that you think would be great little triple features, but it's not sequels, prequels, remakes kind of things. These are movies that are connected in some way other than being direct sequels or prequels of each other. But as always, the most important thing, what are we drinking? Brandon, what are you having tonight?
I am having an Irish coffee. I made it with cold brew and some Bailey's.
Well, happy Irish Day to you. Jim, what are you having?
I got myself for Christmas a little holiday.
I have that same thing. I bought that same set.
Yeah, so mostly I just love tiki things, and also it was $5 less than the bottle. So I'm like, why would I not get a tiki cup?
I was a little disappointed it wasn't like porcelain. It was like plastic.
Yeah, also me, but maybe it's good that it's plastic. I mean, if I'm drinking it on my patio,
fair
Lord
enough.
knows what's going to happen to it. So I made myself a peach pirate. It's the way I made it. It's 2-part spiced rum, 2 parts orange juice, 1 part peach schnapps, 1 part coconut milk.
Fair enough. Sounds delish. And Kale, what are you having?
Well, I'm pulling that New Year, New Me bullshit. So I tried to cut out alcohol and cigarettes and anything else that's fun, and went on a diet and stuff. So, but I figured, in the name of moderation, I got myself a couple of craft beers for our episodes. The first one I got is Obsidian Stout, and that is from Bend, Oregon. And then I got one Vanilla Porter from Breckenridge Brewery.
I've been to Breckenridge, actually.
I'll still be willing to do the tastings when we do the tastings. I don't want to do this on the daily. I want to try and clean myself up a bit.
I'm just saying, with those craft brews, with those craft beers, you might want to have like a flannel shirt on and a little bit longer beard. This episode we were talking about triple features. This is 3 movies that make a great whole. So when you're thinking about 3 things that come together and make a great whole, there's nothing better than bourbon. It is corn, rye, and barley all coming together to make something pretty amazing. In this case, I'm having an Ezra Brooks barrel strength barrel select, and it is quite tasty. Okay, so I feel like this topic, and I'll admit I came up with this topic when I had specifically thought of 3 movies that would work very well, and I dragged everybody kicking and screaming into it, but they've been very good sports about it. Again, sort of to reiterate, this is 3 movies that you feel like go well together for some reason other than the fact they're a prequel or a sequel. So this could be genres that match up. This could be directors, actors, just something else that sort of combines these movies in your head that makes them work really well together. Brandon, let's start off with you. What is your first one?
Well, I'll say right off the bat, it didn't occur to me until you were just talking about it that if you were to try and watch some of my 3 sets right in a row, it'd be like an all-day thing. This would be a long undertaking. The first one that came to mind was Gangster Movies. So I went with Snatch as my first one. Then slightly less fun, but I mean, still fun, but I went with Miller's Crossing, maybe my all-time favorite gangster movie. And then the last one was Godfather. So that would be one hell of a setting. And it would get slow. You might want to reverse them if you want to get lighter towards the end of the night. But I thought those would be a great triple feature.
I think I would probably do Miller's Crossing first, then Snatch to lighten the mood, and then finish off with The Godfather.
Yeah, but I could see Snatch at the end too. If you're just like, if you've been drinking the whole time or something, you don't want to be real especially you don't want to put like the really longest one at the end, I suppose. But
It might be
You don't
hard
have to worry
keep
about how
up
to
with
open the
Snatch.
dog.
It might be hard to keep up with Snatch if you've been drinking a lot, though. At the end,
Yeah, especially if you're an American, some of that language gets a little thick.
you're like, dang.
So I've not seen Miller's Crossing. Can you give me a brief summary?
Well, it's oh god,
Coen Brothers.
Coen Brothers, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Hell of a
It's got-
cast too.
Yeah,
Hell of a
Gabriel
guy.
Bryan is the head guy.
No,
It's-
Gabriel
it's
Bryan's not
just-
the head guy. Gabriel Bryan's like he's like
the main character.
the main character, but he's not like the boss.
No,
The boss is
well,
Albert Finney.
Yeah.
And isn't oh god, Jesus from The Big Lebowski. John Turturro's in it too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's supposed to be dead and all this. It's very atmospheric. There's a lot of like Coen Brothers to it. There's this like gangster duo of thugmen. Like one guy's kind of quick and tiny and the other guy's really big. You'd recognize both their faces if you saw them, character actors that you've seen a million times. And
John Polito is somebody you probably don't know his name, but if you look at his face, he's like the fat gangster guy in 150 movies. And
Right.
Mike Starr is another one of those guys. Like you don't know his name, but you look at him you're like, oh, that's the fat gangster guy from 150 movies.
yeah,
And then Steve Buscemi also.
it's got so many memorable moments in it too. There's the one where the big tough gangster's like walking up like he's gonna pound the crap out of Gabriel Bryan, and he just steps back and picks up a chair and hits him across the nose. I don't know.
But then the tiny little gangster comes in and beats the shit out of him.
Yeah. He like takes his coat off as he's walking in. And he just like stomps him. The whole scene out in the woods where he allows Turturro to live, and then that follow-up scene near the end, man, it's such a good movie.
No spoilers
It's-
on that one because I think it's,
no spoilers. I mean, it's a what, early 90s movie, but still worth seeing if you ever get the chance. Maybe make it, I don't know, making Miller's Crossing the first one might make everything else kind of a letdown. Like I said, it's my favorite gangster movie, but
1990. Yeah, Snatch is great. I think Snatch is that's like Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie's a strange director. Like he can make some really, really cool, fun movies, but then sometimes he just doesn't. And it's
well, and the
it's
two
kinda
big ones are
strange.
Lock, Stock, and Snatch. And Lock, Stock really, I mean, it's got criminals, but isn't really a gangster movie. Snatch has much more gangsters, including Bricktop, who is one of the better gangsters.
Seriously, Bricktop is fantastic. I just
know.
recently watched that with my kids.
Who Bricktop's
And,
actually in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah,
but
he's
he has
the
a very
driver.
small part as the bartender.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
fit anybody to pigs in that though, right?
No.
He does not. He mainly just serves beer.
And then you've got what's his name? The thug that's in both of them. That plays Big Chris in Lock, Stock.
Vin Diesel. Jesus, no, not Vin Diesel.
Vinny is
Vinny Jones. Vinny Jones.
Vinny Jones, where he's given the whole speech about how yours has got replica written down the side of him, and mine has got Desert Eagle .50. It's such a great part.
Two things that sort of to follow up that Rock and Roll is another movie that he did that I thought was pretty good. It's very much in the vein of, and by the way, if you're a Guy Ritchie fan, then Lock, Stock, Snatch, and Rock and Roll would be a very good three movie thing.
Another great Vinny Jones part is actually from Lock, Stock, where he sees the other thug guy who's got the guns in the bags. He just like headbutts him. He's like, cheeky bastard, and just walks off.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And I mean, I feel like we're sort of bearing the lead here. Godfather, which most, a lot of people consider to be one of the greatest films ever made. And it is like, it's got so many archetypes in there, actors playing the best roles that they're ever going to play. I mean, you can go down the list, Al Pacino playing Michael Corleone and Sonny, James Caan playing Sonny and of course, Marlon Brando and, just down the list. By the way, you guys saw there's one interesting little tidbit about that I want to get into, but Kale, which one of those three, you talk about those a little bit because you've seen all those movies.
Lock, Stock, and Snatch in that?
Well, no, Snatch, Miller's Crossing, and Godfather.
Oh wow. Well, Godfather's really long.
I think Godfather is to gangster movies what Token is to fantasy novels. There was stuff before it, but I think Godfather is kind of the thing most modern gangster movies kind of model.
Completely honest with you, I watched The Godfather once, and that's all I had in me. I couldn't do it again.
Please address all negative comments to Kale.
I really liked it. I would say I probably like the other two more, just because.
Really fun. Lock, Stock is really fun.
It's not Lock, Stock, Kale. It's Snatch.
Oh. Well, sorry. I was having technical difficulties when you guys started this. So, now Snatch is the one with Brad Pitt, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. The one with Dags.
Is that the one where Vinnie Jones plays Bullet Tooth Tony?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I love one of my favorite lines there is Dennis Farina is talking to Vinnie Jones' character. He's like, why do they call him the Bullet Dodger? And Vinnie Jones is like, because he dodges bullets.
Because he dodges bullets, Abby.
The one I think kind of interesting little thing about The Godfather. So it has John Cazale, who played Fredo. And I just think Fredo, he died very young. He died in 1978. I think it was cancer or something. But his entire filmography is thus. He was in a short film called The American Way and was on a TV show for 1 or 2 episodes called NYPD. So he's in those 2 things. He's then cast in The Godfather. He does another movie called The Conversation. He then does The Godfather Part 2, then Dog Day Afternoon, and then The Deer Hunter. And that's his last film credit. So, I mean, like right in a row, it's The Godfather 2, Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter. I mean,
that's pretty good.
as far as if you're looking for an actor who's like, you know, whose batting average is pretty damn high, you have a hard time beating him.
You just made me think of another 3-movie set that I can't write down.
I mean, like 60% of the movies he in won Best Picture. So,
he should have taken credit for all of it and been like, well, that was all me.
Well, unfortunately, he was a little dead to do that. But
Yeah, just held it together.
Really interesting, just kind of interesting that like such a short career and yet such a career with like such huge movies in it. And
memorable parts. I mean, he was not just, in the background, wallflower. He had some really great lines in The Godfather too.
Yeah, Fredo's a really interesting character. I think that especially in Godfather Part 2 is like, is he bad? Is he weak? Is he like, what is he? Or is he just like a normal guy who's being overshadowed by his brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I know that everybody likes the scene where they're sitting in Italy and they're speaking Italian.
I think that's Part 2.
Oh, it is?
I'm assuming that's the one where, or no, I'm wrong. You're right. Because that's where Michael Corleone goes in. That's Part 1, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where he goes after he shoots the police
the guy
chief.
in the restaurant.
Yeah. No, you're right. I'm sorry. All right, Jim. So what is your first? By the way, I don't know. I haven't really ranked these in any order. These I've found these just kind of interesting films to talk about. The one that I'll discuss last is the one that sort of was my impetus to talk about this. But other than that, there's not really one. So Jim, what's the first one you're going to talk about?
White Savior Kung Fu is the topic of these 3.
I thought that was the name of the movie, and I was like, really?
I wish.
I was typing that into IMDb as you're talking.
So I actually struggled with this because like Brandon was saying earlier, I kind of had 2 movies and I'm like, I can't think of a third one, but finally came up with one. So Bloodsport is a terrible movie that I love. I watched it over and over again in like 1993. I probably watched it like 50 times that year. Then another 90s underrated kung fu classic, Best of the Best. It's another tournament. Well, not a tournament. It's a match, kung fu match film between the U.S. and South Korea.
Is that Eric Roberts?
Yeah,
Yes.
and James Earl Jones. Yeah, it actually has kind of a decent cast. I mean, it's still a crappy kung fu movie, but it's pretty entertaining.
It's also got Chris Penn, I think, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It does.
R.I.P.
And then the third one that I kind of struggled with, and then it just came to me. It's a foreign language film. It's in French. It's kind of a mystery horror movie too, but it is really kung fu. It's Brotherhood of the Wolf. And that's
I think Johnny Lee Miller. Is that Johnny Lee Miller in there?
Honestly, I have no idea who is in it.
No, I might be thinking. No, I think I've seen it, but I think I'm thinking of a different movie with Johnny Lee Miller. But
So I know there's one specific actor who plays a villain in it that I'm familiar with, and he's been in a lot of Hollywood things. Most of the other actors in it I was not super familiar with. But
Is this a Vincent Cassel? A French movie?
I do not know. You'll have to look it up. I don't know the names of any of the people are in it.
It
I just
says
know.
in 18th century France, the Chevalier de Fronsac and his Native American friend Manny are sent to blah blah blah. Does that sound like it's
Yes.
it? Okay,
That's
gotcha.
it.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that-
that's got the guy for what's his name? The guy. Oh, he's been in a million things.
Yeah.
Mark Dacascos. I swear, I look at his name and I'm like, I should be able to pronounce that, and I just can't. Mark
Yeah, so
Dacascos.
He's in a million things. Most of the other people in the film haven't been in a million things.
Right.
And it's just bizarre. I mean, it's kind of a horror movie mystery with a lot of kung fu. It's set in the 1800s during the French Revolution, and it's awesome.
Well, I can't speak too much to that, but Mark has
Mark D.
So I'm actually rewatching the Lucifer TV show, and Mark Dacascos pops up as really reaching and playing an action star, which I thought was fun. I think he was in Double Dragon too, wasn't he?
I don't remember that. I don't know that I've seen Double Dragon.
maybe.
Because I think it was him and that other. Yeah. Anyway, so Bloodsport. I may have seen Bloodsport 1 or 2 or 25 times. It's got Bolo Young in it. Bolo Young's great. Honestly, if I was going to Bloodsport, I'd probably do if I was going to do that same, it'd be like Bloodsport. What's the one where Van Damme's playing Double Impact? Is that the one where he's playing twins, or is that the one with?
That's the twins one.
Yeah. So that one, because that's got Bolo Young in it too, and then maybe like Kickboxer. Yeah, I was like a huge Van Damme fan when I was a kid. So yeah, I've seen Bloodsport. Like
The one I always remember isn't that it's in the first one, I think, where Tong Po is like kicking that pillar in the building, and it's like shifting. I always thought
the
that was badass
kickboxers
when I
go
was a kid.
downhill real quick. Because like Sasha Mitchell takes over like the second and third one. And then it goes downhill from Sasha Mitchell. So like if like Sasha Mitchell is like your brighter point, then you know your series is not in great shape.
But
Like
you
you
could have watched The Quest or Hard Target.
Hard Target's good. We're just gonna have a whole meeting about Van Damme, aren't we?
So I will just say that I've seen a lot of the Van Damme movies, and like you, I was a fan and went to see a lot of them in theaters. But Bloodsport is the only one that I've like watched multiple times.
I've seen Hard Target a couple times. I've seen Kickboxer a bunch of times. I've seen Cyborg a few times. That's like low budget Terminator, basically. That's before
Dolph Lundgren, right? Or is
No.
that's Universal Soldiers.
You're thinking Universal Soldier, which Universal Soldier I saw a million times too. I don't know. Universal Soldier is probably my favorite Van Damme movie because Dolph Lundgren is just like, I feel like Dolph Lundgren is just fucking around in that movie. He's just like having a ball.
What was the
He's got
middle
his,
one?
like necklace of ears and everything.
I remember,
What was that?
What was the second movie you said?
Best of the Best. Has anyone else seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm Alone, and I never saw that one, so I apologize. I know people love that movie. It's like it's huge cult following.
I just remember Eric Roberts being all in white a lot in that one.
Yep.
James Earl Jones is in that?
He is.
It's a lot of people.
He's fantastic.
Wow.
He takes this rabble group of hard knock Americans and forges them into a team that manages to
And Louise Fletcher.
almost win.
Louise Fletcher's in it too. The only thing I remember so I've seen Best of the Best 3 multiple times because it was on TV or something.
I didn't even know there was a Best of the Best 3.
And it's got like one of the main antagonists is Wayne Newton.
You know, somehow weirdly that makes
that.
sense. I don't know how, but it does.
Yeah. So I've seen Best of the Best 3, unfortunately not the original 1 or 2.
So you should watch the first one. It has a nice redemption story in it. It has some decent kung fu action. James Earl Jones is fantastic. I feel like James Earl Jones is kind of like Sean Connery. He appears in all sorts of horrible movies, and he's still really good.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of the Jack Ryan movies too.
Yep.
He was the only one that was in all 3 of those first Jack Ryan movies because, originally Alec Baldwin was cast, which, that'd be sequels, but that's another 3-movie one to watch if they weren't sequels. But they cast Alec Baldwin as Jack Ryan originally, and then they got Harrison Ford over for Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. And Hunt for Red October is good, but Harrison Ford is better as Jack Ryan, I think. I don't think that's particularly controversial to say.
I think it's controversial. I like Baldwin better.
Well, everybody's free to be wrong.
Did a movie version of Cardinal Over the Kremlin, which is the only Clancy book I actually read.
Oh, they'll get to it eventually. Although he does have like 140,000 books, I think. He wrote like a book every 1.5 days. He's like Stephen King.
Not George R.R. Martin.
Not George R.R. Martin. Yeah, I apologize. I don't have more to say about the Best of the Best because I know people love that, but I've never seen it.
It's been a long time since I saw it. I'm surprised I remembered Eric Roberts.
He's wearing a silly little ponytail.
All right, Kale, what is the first 3-movie set you would like to discuss with the group?
The first 3-movie set that I thought of almost immediately during my formative years, I was very much drawn to weird movies. That's just part of my personality. And so my first 3-movie set is Time Bandits, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal.
Nice. I like it.
I am surprised by none of those.
Time Bandits, the concept is there's a group of little people and they're going around. I think they're supposed to be thieves.
Yep.
But they end up helping the kid get his parents back. And they just keep jumping through all these weird times. And it's a lot of the characters from Monty Python. Well, a lot of the players from Monty Python are actually in these movies. And I didn't really think about that when I put this list together. But in Time Bandits and in Baron Munchausen, you've got John Cleese, you've got Eric Idle,
Sting.
Okay. Well, okay, but it was the Monty Python guys. But anyway, no, Time Bandits. It's just weird, kind of just silly, like crazy stuff happens. There's like the dark world where the evil guy is holding the kid's parents. Adventures of Baron Munchausen's kind of along the same lines. Like it just keeps jumping from one theme to another, and the whole time. And I don't know if anybody knows the lore behind Baron Munchausen. Basically, he was a giant liar. It was kind of based on.
He's 7 feet tall.
He was based on Donald Trump, I think, because everything was a lie. And no, but like he just goes on all these. They should have called it the misadventures of Baron Munchausen because he just kept ending up getting in trouble with stuff. And like Robin Williams has got a really great part in there. Just really silliness. He rides a cannonball, all kinds of craziness.
Just real quickly, so the cast is pretty crazy. So John Neville and Eric Idle are the stars, and Sarah Polley, I think, who kind of was at least a moderate star in the 1990s, was in that movie. And she would have only been about 8 years old. So she went on to be a big star. Jonathan Pryce, Uma Thurman, Robin Williams, Sting. I mean, it's just like got a ton of people in it.
Yeah. And I actually went back and like watched the original previews on YouTube. Thanks, YouTube. And like just realized, wow, I can't believe how many people that went on to do other stuff are in this. And I really like that. I like going back and seeing a movie that I saw like in the 80s when I was a kid and going, wow, okay, that person's famous, that person's famous, that person's it's really interesting. Then and then the last one, of course, is Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. More puppets in there than actual people, and
That one freaked me out a lot as a kid.
Yeah, it's just
Super
one
creepy.
of those where it's just so weird. It's just so out there. And it's Jim Henson. It's Kermit the Frog and Fozzie Bear and Big Bird, but no, it's like all these really, really creepy creatures that he couldn't put on like Sesame Street or the Muppet Show.
They had some big birds in that too, super creepy ones.
I just feel like I can't abide its lack of Jennifer Connelly.
It's not Labyrinth.
It's not Labyrinth.
Yeah, but I like the Jennifer Connelly of Labyrinth. That was a big draw for a young man.
Yeah.
But I think it's you talk about that being sort of strange for Jim Henson to be doing that, but I think there's a lot of people that do primarily children's fare, and you realize they're adults too, and they have adult thoughts and adult ideas, things that aren't for kids. So I don't think it's all that odd to think that somebody has, and I think it's one of those things when you say adult, people immediately think you're talking sex, but it's not. There's like a million different topics that kids just don't doesn't ring with kids, and so the fact that you have people that are doing primarily children's stuff that would maybe enjoy doing something that's not for kids every so often. So I think
going on an adventure to find a piece of crystal to repair the dark crystal to fix the world, or you could sit down and balance your budget and make sure you got all your bills paid for the month. That's very adult, but it's very boring.
So I'm going to say a controversial thing. I've never seen Dark Crystal or Labyrinth. Neither of them. So
We can't be friends anymore.
feel free to direct your hate this way.
So I'm not sure I've ever watched Labyrinth all the way through. I've watched Dark Crystal several times. I love Dark Crystal.
Kale, did you see the Netflix thing they did a Netflix Dark Crystal a year or two ago?
Yeah, I don't know. I tried it. I didn't really care for it. I watched a little bit of the beginning, and I don't know. It just wasn't the same.
I will say this: Netflix has gotten pretty good at some of their remakes. Give She-Ra or He-Man a try. Especially Voltron is a really good remake.
I can't. So I've seen Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and I think I've seen the Time Bandits. But it's one of those movies where like there's a bunch of comedies in the 80s that had sort of the Python alum, and a lot of them kind of just get mixed around in my head. So like when I think about these movies, I end up thinking of like A Fish Called Wanda, because that had Cleese and I think Michael Palin, I think, in it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm trying to think of, Michael Palin. I couldn't remember his name.
Right. And it's like, wait a minute. And then of course you had Terry Gilliam doing, well, actually, so Terry Gilliam wrote the screenplay for Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And when he directed Time Bandits,
probably weird.
And he directed Time Bandits, which yes, of course it is. I like Terry Gilliam, but
Actually,
he's
American,
definitely
isn't he?
maybe not for everybody type of person.
I always think of Brazil and the personalized tape you can put on your heating ducts.
I've never seen Brazil either. I probably should.
So
I realized that he did Time Bandits, Adventures of Munchausen, and Brazil, which I've never seen.
Gilliam's had an
couldn't make it
interesting
through
career.
Brazil.
Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was just saying I watched Brazil way back when, and I couldn't make it through it. It was bizarre and not entertaining to me.
It is that.
Doesn't it have that's Robert De Niro in it, doesn't it?
I have no idea.
Man, I don't remember.
So
He's
Kale,
in
I do have a question for Kale. You said
Yeah.
you watched the trailers for some of the movies. Have you watched trailers from the 80s recently, or was it shocking to go back and see how bad trailers were then compared to now?
You know, You say bad, but I think nostalgic is what
I feel like that's the same thing. You're just using a different word.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
It's not as clean. It's kind of fuzzy and not cut very well.
Did it have a voiceover by somebody that really didn't know anything about what the movie was about?
Yes,
That's my That's my favorite.
That's the weirdest. Like, I was trying to show my wife and my son. I was trying to get him to watch Flight of the Navigator. So I looked up the trailer on YouTube, and the way the trailer is presented, it looks like a horror film. Like they're out in the woods and there's this dark orchestral music. It looks like somebody's going to get murdered, and it's just
there's probably some deep voiced guy.
Yeah,
saying,
there is.
Come
it is.
see Flight of the Navigator.
And I wanted to
be scared.
I had to reassure them that I'm not crazy. This is a good movie and it's not a horror film. But
I love that movie as a kid. Love Flight of the Navigator.
I don't leak. You leak.
Yeah, I was actually, somebody was asking like online somewhere about what the first movie you saw in a theater was, and I was trying to figure out what it was. It was either Flight of the Navigator or The Land Before Time, I think, for me. And I can't remember when The Land Before Time came out.
One of my first ones was Zippity Doodah as a matinee, and I'm pretty sure I might have been like the last American to see that movie live in a theater.
Oh, like Song of the South.
Right.
Oh yeah. They don't know. That's
no, they don't.
Walt Disney has burned every copy of that movie.
Yeah, I saw that at the Perry movie theater in matinee.
My uncle had a copy of that on VHS for his kids, and so I think
I've
got
seen some catchy tunes.
Just don't think about it at all, or it starts to just.
Was somebody's uncle in that? Somebody's uncle.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone. I'm going to move on to mine, and I think I am going to go with. Okay, so this was kind of like, I feel like there's a lot of gritty action out there, but I feel like gritty action is very rarely done sort of perfectly. And so I picked the three movies that I feel like have done gritty action basically flawlessly, where you couldn't change a thing. And that is the movie Dredd, not the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, the newer Dredd remake, The Crow, and RoboCop. And I feel like when you're talking about gritty, bloody, violent horror action movies, like those three are basically like the Holy Trinity. Like that's all those movies are perfect. I wouldn't change a single thing about them. I mean, to start off with, Dredd is one of those movies where, like, you tell me there's a Dredd remake coming out starring the guy that played Bones in the remake of Star Trek, and it's got Cersei Lannister playing like a scarred up villain. Like, it doesn't sound like something that I would necessarily be into, although I do love Lena Headey a lot. And then you go to the movie and it's just a perfect 80s action movie that was made in like 2008 or 2009 or whatever. And so ridiculously violent like that. Like, watch that movie again. Like, it is like people's chests are getting blown apart. Like, it is just ridiculously violent, and it's done really well. The Crow, you know, in the 90s, I think you'd be hard pressed finding a better action movie in the 1990s than The Crow. And then RoboCop. I mean, what do you say about RoboCop?
Social justice movie?
Well, that too. It's one of those things, like I've said before, you know, if you're going to make a movie sort of about a social topic or political topic, that's fine and good, but you have to make it good first. You have to make a good movie first, and then you can start doing your political commentary. And, you know, Paul Verhoeven is just kind of a master of that, you know, minus Showgirls maybe. And yeah, it's RoboCop. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like The Crow. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I've seen all three of those movies countless times. Yeah, all of them are good. I mean, obviously the one thing I would change about The Crow is Brandon Lee could have lived through it, but
well, yeah, Brandon, I wasn't saying I'm glad that happened.
No, I know. It's just the thing I think of, because he could have done so much more, and it was quite a final thing to go out on. But
by the way, all have really good villains. I think that probably
Michael Wincott in The Crow.
I think Lena Headey is an actress who, like, she continues to be in things, but I never feel like she really gets her due. She's so good in so many things. Like the Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which is a TV show on Fox. That show was maligned all the way through. She was great in it. I feel like the kid who played John Connor was as good as he could be in it. Summer Glau's great in it. Like, everybody's great in that show.
In Dread, she did have a really great death scene at the end. The end.
Oh, of Dread?
Yeah.
So good. Such a good death scene.
Time drug or whatever.
Well, and spoiler alert, the bad guy dies in the end of Dread. I don't know if you're ruined by that.
So I'm going to say something controversial. I like the Sylvester Stallone Dread.
Can we mute his microphone? Is that
seriously? It's bad, right? I just Max von
rewatch that movie again. Everything starts exploding in the end of the movie. There's no reason. I watched it again a while ago. If you watch the movie, things are starting to blow up. There's never a reason given as to why they're blowing up. They just are.
And the thing is,
the lab's
if you're going to watch a Sylvester Stallone from a movie from around that time, just go watch Demolition Man.
Right, Demolition Man's great.
I agree. They're just.
I was actually trying to build a 3-movie thing around Demolition Man, Blade, and something else with like a Wesley Snipes 3-movie from the 90s.
See, I was just thinking when you were mentioning those, I was thinking Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis. But
what about Rising Sun? That's a good one with Wesley Snipes.
Yes, that is a good one. And got Sean Connery too. But no, so I kind of talk about Dread first because I feel like in this list, Dread is probably the one that's least likely to have been seen because it was kind of a bomb. No, it wasn't kind of a bomb. It was a total bomb. It made nothing at the box office, which I think is a huge shame. It's one of those ones where like super hard R action movies are, I think sometimes, don't get the audience they should because everybody's expecting it's like the Expendables. And this is a whole diatribe I can get off on is I would love to do a whole video essay on the Expendables versus Dread because the Expendables is people who used to watch action movies in the 90s, but haven't actually watched action movies for a long time. It's sort of like their idea of what 80s action movies were, whereas Dread is what 80s action movies actually were. And that's why it's so much better. And it holds up so well. And yeah, I think Dread is just as good as the other 2 movies in that list. And that may be controversial, but I don't care. I love Dread so much. But then The Crow, The Crow is just like the cast is great. All the villains are cast perfectly, like T-Bird, Tintin, they're just great. And the villain's great. It's
amazing names that stick with you, plus amazing quotes from the movie.
You have to be making one hell of a movie to have a movie with Tony Todd where you basically forget Tony Todd's in the movie. And I love Tony Todd, but there's so much other stuff going on, you almost forget he's even there.
Quick impression for you. Caw, bang, fuck, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Too soon.
And Jim, how do you feel about how much do you hate The Crow, or have you never seen it?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we aren't movie twins. I'm not a huge fan of any of these movies. I got to be real honest. I kind of like Dread. Not a huge fan of The Crow. Not a huge fan of Robocop either. Even though Robocop it should be in my wheelhouse, exactly time period, exactly subject matter.
RoboCop is very much Paul Verhoeven being Paul Verhoeven as much as Paul Verhoeven can, and really just jamming social commentary in your face in a way that it doesn't really feel like that. There's a whole lot of arch conservatives that love that movie and don't realize that it's making fun of them. RoboCop is. He's a joke on what right-wing law enforcement is. This guy, this perfect law enforcement, and corporations ruling everything. And actually, RoboCop 2 isn't bad. It's not as good, but it isn't bad. And there you get into the drug stuff and the idea of the government being in bed with the drug dealers.
Is it the third one with Robert John Burke?
Yes, which the third one is kind of fun in its own right, but it's definitely far afield from the other ones. Also, the third one's rated PG-13, I think, which Jesus, the RoboCop got an X rating when it first came out.
Yeah.
So speaking of PG-13 and X or whatever, you asked what our first movies were, and I want to know what everyone's first R-rated movie was.
It might have been RoboCop. It'd be RoboCop or Predator, probably. No.
Well, I grew up in a
wrong.
very-
It was Alien. It was Alien.
I grew up in a very Christian fundamentalist household, so we weren't allowed to watch rated R at all. I probably saw Predator on like regular network television with all the bad stuff cut out.
So it wasn't rated R.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. So I don't know what my first one all the way through. I mean, I don't know.
Kale?
Yeah, I have no idea. It was
I only
probably-
remember Alien because I remember being my mom worked downtown and I was at the YMCA for daycare or whatever. And for some reason they showed the kids at the YMCA Alien.
Fantastic.
And like a bunch of us were like 10 years old and they're like, here's Alien. And then I go to my babysitter and she's like, hey, let's watch Poltergeist. You're 7. This is fine.
So I have a very fond memory of my I have 3 older sisters, and the middle older sister Lana asked me if she could take me to a movie. I'm like, absolutely. And I asked her to take me to Conan, and I think I was in 2nd grade. And we got to the theater and some friends of hers were there. They're like, oh, you're taking your brother to a movie? What are you taking him to? Conan. They're like, what?
That's rated R?
Fantastic. Oh my God. There's
Hell, are you kidding?
sex scenes with a succubus. There's massive beheadings.
Beheadings everywhere.
Yeah, beheadings everywhere. Additional sex scenes, but mostly sex scenes with the succubus. Oh yeah, he got bred in captivity. Right. I forgot that was early on in the movie.
Yeah.
It was quite opening for a second.
I remember him being on the wheel and the music going burn, 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 burn.
Fantastic.
I think it's
music.
important.
Grace Jones.
Grace Jones is the destroyer, I think.
Yes.
Well,
James Earl Jones is in it and fantastic.
yeah. I
As
think
the
he gets
Bond.
beheaded too.
Yep.
Oh, I think you said Grace Jones. I'm sorry. Yeah, Grace Jones comes in Conan the Destroyer.
Yep.
With that weird tail. She has a little tail in that movie. It's very strange. Except
Also-
really you can't use the word strange when regarding to Grace Jones because she's Grace Jones. And of course it would be
Also,
strange.
Wilt the Stilt as a hero / villain in that one. I hated that movie, but I thought he was pretty good.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
I forgot about that. All right,
Not to jump too far back, but Brendan said something when you were talking about gritty movies about Last Man Standing, and you could have put that in your gangster movies because that was a great gangster movie, and it had a really good soundtrack because it had that tenor sax on it all the time.
It's funny. I'd almost consider Last Man Standing more of a Western than I would a gangster movie. I mean, I understand
Oh,
it is
a direct
a
copy of the
gangster
Western.
movie, but it's it feels like a Western.
It's what? Fistful of Dollars, which itself is an Akira Kurosawa movie.
Which is an Eastern.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, what is the next one you want to talk about?
Okay, so I don't think any of these are technically considered horror. I mean, they might be. I'm not a big horror fan. I know Mike is, but these are 3 that are a lot of fun, and I could watch just about any time. And I would introduce people to. I don't know what you call it. My mindset, the way I like movies back in the 90s. The number 1 is Split Second, one of Rutger Hauer's best films. Just an amazing cast. Yeah, it's got the giant hand thing. It's got.
Hey, Brandon, what do you think we need?
More coffee.
No, guns. Big fucking
Yeah,
guns.
yeah,
Big
yeah.
fuck you guns.
And what's the guy's name? Dirk, his sidekick or whatever.
I'll tell you in a minute.
It is so good. It's such a great introduction to Rutger Hauer too. Like, you
Can I
could
guess
just
what the
have
next one's going to be?
Sure.
Are you going to do Dead or Alive?
No.
Oh, damn it. I thought you were going Rutger Hauer themed.
I did think about doing that.
Intention.
Yeah. I was going. You could easily do a Rutger Hauer marathon all the way through, I think, and be happy with it. The second one is one that I had near memorized at a point, is Army of Darkness with Bruce Campbell.
I've heard of that.
Fantastic.
That one is so good and so out there. There isn't, other than Evil Dead 2, there really isn't too much out there that is anything like Army of Darkness. Nobody's tried to do a comedy horror again, really. I mean, what's the closest? The one, the two hillbillies where all the kids that kill themselves around them.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
great
that
movie.
one's probably
Tucker
the
and Dale
closest.
versus Evil is really good.
Yeah. But no, Army of Darkness is just so much fun, and talk about quotable. It's, just like almost everything. This is my boomstick.
Baby, you got real ugly.
Yeah.
I remember that's back when.
What are you, born in a barn?
Out.
Probably were born in a barn. Primitive screws.
that was back when they first started coming out with special editions of things, and I think I literally owned like 3 copies of Army of Darkness that were like different versions.
We had the one that looked like the Necronomicon.
Well, the one that I remember, and this was on VHS, it was the one in like the gold case, and that's the one that had added in a bunch of alternate takes, and it was like, I don't know, like 2.5 hours long, or so. It was like a really long version and had a bunch of stuff that wasn't in the original.
So good. I mean, if you watched all 3 of these, honestly, but if you watched those 2 right in a row, you'd have a happy evening anyway.
Groovy.
And the third one is, it's going to seem incongruous with the other 2, but it's one of those ones that it's a horror movie, and I really enjoyed it. It's not a torture fest or a gore thing. It's Pontypool. It's a Canadian vampire movie. Canadian zombie movie. And it is one of the most unique takes on zombies, which is a genre almost devoid of unique takes.
As a fan of zombie movies, I would say there are some great zombie movies, but you have to trudge through a lot of shit to get to the good zombie movies.
But it's still, even the best zombie movies don't have a whole lot of originality in what happens. It's more based on how good your characters are and the actors are. Pontypool tries something different, and it takes a very minimalist approach. It only really happens in like one building and like outside at the beginning, I think. And it's got a great cast, and it's very claustrophobic. Like it just kind of, you feel like you're in this little room with them too, as the whole world's kind of coming to an end.
Stephen McHattie's great in that movie.
Yes, he is.
And I actually have, I think that movie is saying a lot of things. So I was talking to, I got to see my my old team leader from the Army when I was out in Las Vegas this last time. If you're watching, hi. And we were talking about that, and he loved it, and I've loved it for a long time. He said he didn't like the book. I never read the book, but he did not have glowing reviews of the book. Which I don't want to say I haven't read it. He said it was very different. I think that you can take some very political ideas from Pontypool, sort of the idea that speech can be dangerous, which is not a popular thing to say. But I think we're living in a pandemic right now, which sort of illustrates how speech can be a dangerous thing, and how it can create zombies. Are we getting the metaphor here? So no, I love Pontypool. Pontypool is a fantastic movie and really well shot, well acted, just a great movie.
Well, and I think with those 3, I kind of followed the same pattern as the gangster movies, in that you would kind of start off with, kind of your even bar, and then kind of something to lighten the mood, and then something a little bit darker.
I think I would probably go split second Pontypool and then Army of Darkness, so you can close out kind of light. I think after Pontypool, you kind of want to watch Army of Darkness.
So I will say Army of Darkness has a special place for me. I lived in Iowa City in the early 90s, and just lived about a block from the Tofu Video Hut. And that was a movie that we rented several times. Just hysterical.
It's so good. Like I said, I had that thing nearly memorized at one point, I think.
I'm badass. You're good at it.
Good at
it.
Oh, by the way, Brandon, I was going to tell you his his partner in Split Second was Detective Dick Durkin. Sorry, Dick Durkin.
Yeah. He's doing like that cheesy movie line at the end, and he's like, "Oh, dark."
And a pre Sex in the City, Kim Cattrall.
Oh yeah.
No, I was thinking when you said that, I was immediately thinking Rutger Hauer, and I was thinking like, I don't know, I guess split second. And then it gets weird. Do you go Blade Runner? Because Blade Runner is like Rutger Hauer's, like one of his best performances. I mean, the whole tears in the rain thing, it was an improvised line. Although after watching Blade Runner 2049, I prefer that to the original. But like he's great in that. But then like Wanted Dead or Alive, and if you've ever wanted to see Rutger Hauer blow up Gene Simmons' head, which who hasn't wanted to see that?
Well, and he was in the one with Ice-T and Charles S. Dutton.
Surviving the Game.
Yeah, Surviving the Game was really good. He's got a pretty brief part in Sin City.
I kind of like Lady Hawk.
Yeah, Lady Hawk's really good. Hobo with a Shotgun.
He also plays the lead vampire in the film version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I had no idea.
At least I think he did. I'm not crazy, am I?
The first movie I ever saw Kim Cattrall in was Mannequin.
Yes, he did.
He's really been around for a long time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he just passed away, fairly recently.
No, Rutger Hauer is always really good.
2019. I'm sorry, I thought it was last year. But yeah, I would probably go split second, Pontypool, and then Army of Darkness. Just to
not a bad one.
No. You don't want to go to bed right after watching Pontypool. All right, Jim, what was the next one you'd like to talk about?
The next list that I have is kind of old animated, 70s and 80s. I'm
neither old nor animated.
The first one was Watership Down.
We're starting off just like a real happy.
Right? I mean, it's a story about rabbits.
If you just stop right there, you might be right.
Just have to leave out the part where they're graphically dying due to poison and being chewed up by dogs.
Right. I watched that. I made my boys watch that with me several years ago, and they have never forgiven me for making them watch.
Somebody call child services, please.
A World War II concentration camp movie with animated rabbit. Really, really creepy movie. And I think the creepiness is only improved by being animated and tricking people into thinking that it's just a kid's show. We were kind of talking earlier about creepy, like the Crystal movie. Right, the Dark Crystal. I think the creepiness is only improved by having it kind of being a kid's story.
You should have them watch You should have them watch the movie Kids with you.
Probably not.
We'll try and do that.
Sophia Coppola.
So I love the book. I love the movie.
That is a thick book too, isn't it? I remember seeing that.
No, it's not that big.
It's a little thick.
I thought it was like 600 or 700 pages, something like that.
I don't know. The version I got was kind of thick. I got it at a library.
I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah. The second animated movie on my list is The Hobbit, which, if any of you have wasted your lives watching the cinematic live action version of The Hobbit, please save yourself 10 hours and go watch a 90-minute version that's way better, way more entertaining, and you won't fall asleep.
I'm sorry, Jim, does your version have Stephen Colbert and a beard? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. But it does have musical numbers, which...
Okay, my heretic moment. I don't like anything Tolkien's ever done. I tried the book. I didn't like the music. I didn't like the animated thing. I didn't like the movies. If none of that ever happened, that'd be just fine.
Did you say you didn't like any of the books either?
No, I only tried the one. I was just like,
Which one did you did you do? The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings?
I don't know. It all seems the same to me.
So I will have to say The Hobbit as a book is not very good. The first book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy has some really slow parts in it. You should try reading the second and third books. I mean,
I was a lot younger when I tried it, so maybe I should give it a shot again, but I didn't like the long ass movies and the 72 endings on the one. And it's just like this just
the super extended version that's now 25 hours long.
Jesus. I just tried the extended versions of one of the ones, Lord of the Rings. I'm like, I like those movies, and the extended versions like made me not like them anymore.
They're like close to 4 hours, aren't they? I mean, they're
terrible.
Too much.
A book suggestion for you. It's a little bit out of the box, but I don't know how to pronounce it, but the Silmarillion is kind of a compendium of a lot of different stories that Tolkien wrote that didn't fit into the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings. It's a little bit like a Tolkien Bible.
I know it's on Kindle Unlimited. I had it for a little bit. I just never got around to it.
It's hard to get into, but each story is kind of a separate story. So to a certain extent, you can kind of get in and get out of it. And I really like that because it really kind of lays the foundations of the mythology, the theology, a basis for a lot of later stories. You should try that out.
Just for my experience with it, I read Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King when I was a kid, and I loved them. I love fantasy a lot. I read a lot of R.A. Salvatore, who's another one of those writers who has written 127,000 books. But no, I thought they were good. I never read The Hobbit. In the movies, I think they're good, but I don't care. And that's the problem. Like, it's like you have to, like, especially if you're getting the long versions, you have to care. And I just like, they're well shot, well acted, well directed. It's fine. I just don't care enough to watch them, I guess.
I think The Hobbit is obscene. They took a short book and turned it into 10 hours of nothing.
Oh, I was talking about the Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit ones I have not begun to tackle because those
don't even bother. Seriously, not kidding. I fell asleep in the movie theater. And if I fall asleep in the movie theater watching these, no one should watch them.
I'm going to watch them when they legalize pot in Iowa. How about that?
Horrible. Right. Third movie on the old animated list of slightly creepy movies is Secret of NIMH.
I love that movie. Badass movie.
Main characters are mice and rats, and they're all super smart because of the National Institute of, I don't remember, but whatever NIMH stands for, it's a scientific institute that experimented on these animals and made them super smart. And they have to save themselves from the evil humans, a little bit like Watership Down.
But not traumatizing, or less so, at least.
Less so, for sure, less so.
I feel like there's certain movies you watch when you're a kid and you're just like, oh, this is amazing. And that's like I feel like, and you've got kids. I don't have kids, but like you, as a parent, you watch your kid doing, they're like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie 30 times. Because when kids like a movie, they're just going to keep watching it. Like, they don't get sick of that movie. They just like, hey, can we just watch this movie forever? Can we just watch the movie on a continuous loop for the next 6 months?
Right. I have nephews who did that with Milo and Otis. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Milo and Otis.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Seriously, should be rated XXX with the birth scene of the cat. Wow. Birth scenes in a movie for kids.
Well, Jim, I'm not sure if you're aware.
Too much for me.
Kids are actually born.
I know. It's just really unexpected. I thought this was going to be like a happy movie about a cat and a dog.
By the
And
way,
then
in all us talking these movies, the thing you were most offended by wasn't in Watership Down, the one where the rabbits are being poisoned and clawing with their terrified eyes to freedom, which they will never reach.
right, exactly. So an honorable mention for this list of kind of creepy 70s, 80s kids movies animated is Ricky Tikki Tavi, which is only 30 minutes long, but
I don't think I saw
also-
that one.
I know the
No.
name, but that's it. Like the name sounds really. I think I
it's
must
a
have seen it.
it's a Kipling story about a mongoose who likes a boy and tries to save him from a cobra and tries to sacrifice himself. So I don't really remember if there's a happy ending or if it's a really, really, really sad ending or if he tricks you, but
What we're trying to say is everything in the 70s was depressing.
right, exactly. Very
There's this
depressing.
movie with a bunch of teenagers from the 70s. I think it's called Bless the Beasts and the Children. That used to creep the hell out of me too. There's this like scene where like a kid falls in front of like a stampede or something. I don't remember. It was creepy. Anyway.
All right, now off from
You
poison
weren't
rats
allowed to watch
clawing their way
Rated
to
R.
freedom. Like I watched that. I have not watched that movie since 1987. And I still remember those little rabbits like, we're gonna die, and then they die. It's like, oh, that's a great thing. That's I'm glad I saw that. Oh, look, the old rabbit is being chewed apart by the dog, and he's dying now. That's great. And he gets a death scene. Good. I'm glad we got to see him die on screen, and I didn't get spared the death of this character.
Such is
Makes me
life.
feel good. And on that happy note, Kale, what do you have for us for your second one you're going to discuss?
Well, since you knocked my list of 7 to 9 groups of 3 down to 3,
We will do a couple honorable mentions before we get to our last ones.
okay, well, I'm narrowing them down, I guess, to 3. I guess that mean probably the more meaningful. My next list is a theme about our neighbor. It's a big red orb called Mars.
Never heard of it.
I thought you were
And-
talking about Canada.
I thought you were talking about weird neighbors, like the one with Bruce Dern and one of the Coreys that you like so much.
Oh, I don't think there's a red orb in there. There's a dream
No.
scene where there's a giant grill, though.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the Burbs.
Yeah, that's
No,
yeah.
Mission to Mars, Red Planet, and The Martian. All 3 movies about Mars. Mission to Mars, it's more along the lines of people that believe in seeding planets and aliens being around closer than they could possibly be. And Red Planet is a little more realistic, but definitely futuristic in the technology and in the setting. Little interesting though, because it is, as opposed to like the weird exploring alien technologies. It's more like our technology has a little glitch and decides it's going to defend itself. And so that makes things interesting for them on that movie. And then The Martian, if you haven't seen that one, really much more following the lines of the rules of science. I mean, it's still a movie, but it's based in reality, and it's definitely in the future, so the technology doesn't really exist yet, or it hasn't been perfected anyway. But I think the farthest reaching part of that is the idea that one lone person, I mean, it is definitely a survival movie, kind of along the lines of like The Revenant or 127 Hours, except this guy is like 50 million miles away from everybody else. So yeah,
That's very
it's
good
a really
movie.
good 3.
I
I would
have
say
things to
probably start with Red Planet, and then go to Mission to Mars. So it kind of goes from kind of fun to like, okay, now we're getting a little bit out there, and then go back to the Martian for the third one and be like, okay, now we're bringing it back to more reality based.
By the way, just a quick shout out for the one that you didn't pick, that you probably didn't pick because it's not a very good movie, and that is John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars, famously one of John Carpenter's least good movies. Starring the tremendous acting duo of Natasha Henstridge and Ice Cube.
Yeah,
How
that would
could you
be
go
great.
wrong?
I do a shout out, but I think you were correct in not picking that particular film. I think The Martian's really good. It was a lot of fun. It's Ridley Scott too. And it's got a really good cast. It's got Kate Mara, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Jeff Daniels, Sean Bean. Sean Bean is Sean Bean killed in that movie like he is in every other movie?
No, he's actually not killed. But there is a reference to Lord of the Rings.
Fair enough. Michael Pena, Sebastian Stan. I mean, that's Chiwetel Ejiofor, Mackenzie Davis, Benedict Wong, Donald Glover. Yeah, that's like a crazy cast.
Yeah, so the Martian is my favorite on this list, and it has me until the rescue mission, and then even in the book, kind of lost me. And like, I felt like the entire premise was kind of reality based, and then they went crazy with the rescue mission about what happens. Just is kind of an over the top ending.
That's where
I
Hollywood.
I don't think Andy Weir wants his main characters to die. He doesn't in the other one. Was it Andromeda?
Artemis.
Artemis, yeah.
I haven't
doesn't-
read that one. I read the Martian book, but I didn't read his other one. Honestly, I have seen both Mission to Mars and Red Planet. I am like 99% sure, and I don't remember a hell of a lot about him.
Yeah, honestly, those two
Red
aren't
Planet,
rated
Red
very
Planet's
well.
2000, so that would have been like
Mission to
very
Mars
post Matrix Carrie Ann Moss.
is Gary Sinise, Tim Robbins,
Jerry O'Connell, Connie Nielsen, Kim Delaney.
It's all based on like there's a face on Mars thing, and then like it's very much based in like conspiracy theory type stuff about Mars, and not so much about actually going to Mars. Red Planet is more about going to Mars, but there's a lot of human drama in it that in order to make that part palpable, they have to kind of like smudge over what it would really be like on Mars. But yeah, like you guys all, I think you guys would all agree that The Martian is by far probably the closest to reality. And I agree with the ending. No logical trained astronaut is going to purposely puncture a hole in their suit. Nope, they're not going to do that, no matter what.
Well, I think Brandon's probably right. Well, I think he's right, and there's also a sort of caveat to that. That if you're writing something to be adapted, you want to make it sort of safe. This is a bit far afield, but we were talking about Terry Gilliam earlier, and I had said something sort of semi-critical of Steven Spielberg, who is in my opinion, a massively mediocre director for the most part, and was accosted violently on Twitter by millions of film nerds who believe that Steven Spielberg is the most incredible filmmaker of all time. And I was looking up other filmmakers talking about Steven Spielberg, and Terry Gilliam basically said that Steven Spielberg, I can't remember his exact term. I might, if I can find the video, I'm gonna link it in the comments or in the description. But basically said that Steven Spielberg just makes safe sort of things that make people feel good, and that he doesn't really make real films that are challenging in any way. And it's very true. I mean, there's no Steven Spielberg movies that have challenging endings, for example. And so for The Martian, like the right ending to The Martian probably is that astronaut just dying on them trying to get him, the plan failing, and then him dying on the planet. But if you want to make a mass market movie that you can make $400 million on, then you save him in the end. because
Not
people
that
don't like
there's anything
challenging
wrong
endings.
with that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right?
Um,
So I have my own warning for Martian books. Kim Stanley Robinson wrote a series, Red Mars, Blue Mars, Green Mars.
I've heard of that. I always wanted to check them out. Are they good?
No,
Okay.
there's a lot of good ideas in them. They're not an entertaining read in any sort of respect. Just save yourself some time and skip over them.
Fair enough.
Fantastic Planet. I guess that's not about Mars.
So we're on to my number 2. I'm sort of, because I like Kale, I had a bunch, but I kind of, given how much we can talk about these things, I didn't want to push it too far. The one I'm going with is, I think, my best collective list. So where I think all 3 movies really fit in and really great. And sort of the rubric of this is 90s stylized action. Because there was a lot of really terrible 90s stylized action and some really good 90s stylized action. And the first one's pretty obvious because they just did the sequel, which was not good, just earlier this or last month, and that is The Matrix. The movie that was very similar to The Matrix in sort of style, which was Equilibrium, and a movie which I felt kind of had some similarities just in style again, which was V for Vendetta. And there are movies where the action choreography, I think, was put as being very important. Again, all 3 of these movies, there's some interesting philosophy and stuff behind them, and some deeper discussions. But honestly, the reason I picked these 3 movies together is they're just really badass action movies to watch. I mean, Equilibrium, being a movie with not a huge budget. I mean, Equilibrium was not on the Matrix level budget wise, but they made it work. Christian Bale was great in it. Sean Bean dies in it because he's Sean Bean. And V for Vendetta is like one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Hugo Weaving's in it. And he's great. I don't know. What do you guys think about those?
I think I'd rather watch
90s
Equilibrium. I'd rather watch Equilibrium than Matrix.
I think that Mike's obsessed with black trench coats. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, you know.
Could be right.
But the action in those movies is great. I mean, again, take all the politics and the philosophy out of it, and it's just some really awesome action scenes. I mean, all 3 of those movies and the great thing about V for Vendetta is V for Vendetta doesn't fit in there immediately. But I think the very end scene where V is going up against Mr. McCready and the what is it, like 12 cops or whatever. And like that action scene is one of the best action scenes that I've ever watched. I love that scene. So it's so good. And it's such like a culmination of where the film's been going. And alternately, the scene in Equilibrium where Christian Bale fights Taye Diggs is so beautifully anticlimactic. And it's just great. Like you're expecting this whole thing and it just doesn't. And then, he goes and fights the other guy and there's the actual big, end scene. Yeah, I like all 3 of those movies a lot.
There's an episode I could go on and on and on about. It's just isolated action movie scenes, like the best action movie scenes. If we, found those on YouTube and watched them and reacted to them, those would be. I could make a list on that for days. I think.
Good boy.
So,
Emerson.
I love The Matrix.
Old boy.
Hate the remakes or the
Sequels.
Rest of the trilogy. I have not seen the new one yet. Has anyone seen the new one yet?
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad. It's real bad. It's very long, and there's really no reason for it to exist. I think when you're doing a sequel after so many years, there's a need to sort of justify yourself, and they do not justify themselves.
Just judging by the preview, it looks like they're trying to see what would happen if John Wick was in The Matrix.
Well, actually, Jim, so you make the money sign. And it gets very meta in a very kind of surface level way. And they're like, oh, we have to do a new game because, and it's like, oh God, please don't do this. Please stop doing this. It's painful. Like it's not. Nope. And then online now there's this whole thing of like, did Lana Wachowski do this as purposefully a bad movie, as a thumb in the eye to, and it's like, stop. No, I'm not having this conversation. It's just a really mediocre movie.
Honestly, even if that's true, I find it really disturbing, insulting, both,
and wasteful.
Right?
Like, why would you go out and spend $120 million to make a bad movie just because you don't like Warner Brothers. Like it's
Right.
like it's one of those things. I could see them making a new Matrix movie now, but here's the thing: you get new directors, new writers, new cast, new everything, and try to do some kind of a fresh take based on what's going on in the world today. And maybe that's bad, and maybe that's a bad take, but it's certainly, you can't just sort of, because I mean, the thing is, whether you like or dislike the other two Matrix movies, Reloaded and Revolutions, which I am a little on the fence. I thought the second one wasn't very good. I thought the third one was a little better. But it is a complete story. I mean, at the end of Matrix Revolutions, you have completed a story. There's nothing else needs to happen. And to do this, it's just like, but what if they blah? And you're like, but I don't want them to blah. I just want it to be over. And like, okay, let's fast forward 150 years into the future and do something completely different, or just don't make another Matrix movie, but don't try to shoehorn in these characters back in. It
will be a. Sorry, go ahead. Go.
No, I was going to say, Brandon pointed out that it was supposed to be like a metaphor for their transitioning.
Yeah,
and if that's
the Matrix is, the originals are. This one is not. This is a metaphor for I was paid a bunch of money to make a movie.
And like you said, it's kind of like, here's an analogy. Okay, like the Slinky was really popular in the 1950s because, okay, it's like, wow, this is Slinky. You wouldn't make the Slinky in 2020. People would be like,
because it's better than Pet Rock, right?
Well, and here's the real problem with the new Matrix is, so they had a real problem. And again, I can talk about the Matrix for a long time. I think it's a really fascinating series. They made some real miscues in Matrix Reloaded with CG, because in the early 2000s, they thought they had the technology to make CG people look realistic, and they did not. So there are some fights, especially between like when there's a whole bunch of Agent Smiths fighting Neo, and it just looks like Stretch Armstrong fighting Stretch Armstrong. It's just the battle of the rubber people, and like nobody is moving in a way that feels real or organic or anything. And it's just, you watch it, and it's just like, this is terrible. But then at the same time, they did that, like the highway scene in The Matrix Reloaded is fantastic because it was done mostly practical. The few digital elements they added are bad, real bad. But all the practical stuff works really good. And it just goes to show you, don't use CGI unless you can make it look good. Like, in Avengers Endgame, for example, Thanos as a CG creation looked really good. They were able to make it work. But that's only because they spent a gajillion dollars, and we live in, the time we do, that they were able to make that work. In the early 2000s, they weren't. And the other thing about Matrix Revolutions or Resurrections, the new one, and I'm going to stop talking about the Matrix soon, I promise, is it looked small. And this is something I never noticed about the original Matrix movies. The Matrix has scale. Especially when you get into the other two and they get into Zion. And again, you can like or dislike those movies, but they have scale. There's wide shots, there's medium shots, there's close shots, which as a viewer shows you scale. It shows you how big the environment you're in. When you look at the new Matrix, it looks small. They're mostly close shots of people, and it looks like a movie that was filmed on a tiny set. And you don't feel scale, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. And I did not like it at all. And the other thing is, it didn't even have the guts to be bad. It was just blah. It was just like, we're doing this thing. Anyway, that being said, I don't know. What do you guys think of, Brandon, you said you like Equilibrium a lot. What did you like about it?
Oh, the whole thing. I love the gun kata. All the characters, Christian Bale, Sean Bean, Taye Diggs, all of them were really good. I think they're all well cast. It might have been, near the beginning of my getting into kung fu movies. I'm not sure I would call Equilibrium a kung fu movie, but the choreographed action scenes, I think, is what I started seeking out when I started watching more kung fu movies.
Do you like Kung Fu or Kung Fu?
Which one?
Seen it? Oh, dude, it was this hilarious show on I think it was on BET. It started originally, and basically they just took old kung fu movies and just dubbed over them.
Oh no, I don't think I saw it.
Well, that was basically what was the one Kung Pao?
Yeah.
Enter the Fist.
Well, there's Kung Pao and this, but no, Kung Fu was like this little series they used to do on BET. But
I love the sentiment. So I will say for me, growing up in central Iowa, my introduction to Kung Fu movies was the $100 movie on Channel 17 before it was Fox. So I loved watching the old school Kung Fu movies and that.
you had to switch the dial from VHF to UHF.
Probably. I remember being mocked on the school bus for confusing Channel 17 with cable. Because I was like, cable? Yeah, I've got that Channel 17. The kids are like, you're an idiot.
My parents had HBO.
Yeah, it's not TV, it's HBO. Hold on just 1 second.
Before we do our first set.
All right. So yeah, those are mine. And again, I love that stylized action, and V for Vendetta's got a lot of cool like political stuff behind it too. So it's good stuff. Brandon, do you have any honorable mentions you want to bring up?
I was thinking of doing like it's more honorable mentions as categories. I was thinking of doing a Christopher Lambert honorable mention. 3 movies from him, a kung fu one, and a Western one. I was thinking of doing those as honorable mentions.
I started a Western, but I put The Unforgiven and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and then I was trying to figure out what my third one would be.
It's Tombstone. It's Tombstone and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
No, Brandon, I'm just talking about good Western movies.
Tombstone's amazing.
True Grit.
Brandon's bringing hell with him.
Kurt Russell will never be my Wyatt Earp. Anyway, Jim, do you have any honorable mentions you wanted to bring up?
I do. Mind vendor list with Fight Club, Jacob's Ladder, and Pie. I'm sure a lot of people know about Fight Club. Jacob's Ladder was 1990s.
Oh, we're very familiar with Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah,
very familiar.
Love that movie.
Which, by the way,
and
weird little thing about Jacob's Ladder. It has
Pie.
Jacob's Ladder has Lewis Black in it. Lewis Black plays the doctor.
Yeah.
Which is he's literally in it. I think he has maybe 2 lines.
That's crazy.
Oh, I was gonna say. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Pie is crazy.
So I had a throwback sci-fi list with modern movies that I feel like have a slow throwback sci-fi feel, with Arrival, Ad Astra, and District 9. And then there's 2 that I have mentioned before. I know you're not a huge fan of Christopher Nolan, but Christopher Nolan's sci-fi trilogy of Inception, Interstellar, and Tenet. And Patrick Stewart of the 80s, which has been mentioned several times. Dune, Life Force, Excalibur. Patrick Stewart brings them all together.
I thought of another one too.
Trilogy.
While we were talking, movies that you're supposed to like and are supposed to be good, but you hated.
That's a good one.
There's a few of those. Kale, honorable mentions.
Donnie Darko's up there.
Let's see.
I like Donnie Darko. I don't care.
First set, honorable mentions: Hunt for Red October, Enemy at the Gate, Spies Like Us, all movies about Russia. Second set, Super Mario Brothers, Ready Player One, Free Guy, all movies about video games. Another one, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Sorry, Mike, that's a Spielberg movie.
Nah.
The Fourth Kind, which has Mila Jovovich, who is probably most well known for The Fifth Element, or probably actually most well known for
Resident Evil.
No. And then Explorers, which is the one with River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke, and the guy that I keep thinking is the boy who could fly, but it's not the same kid.
By the way, Kale, if you're talking alien movies, there's one that I sort of loved called Dark Skies, which isn't a great movie, but it has some of the best jump scares in any like sci-fi horror movie I've come across. And like the way on my rating system, I rated it the highest, not because it's the best movie, but because it has some of the best jump scares. Like that movie really, that got me in several times. I think it stars Kerry Russell. I could be wrong though.
My last set that I'm going to mention is all about future dystopias: Dark City, Minority Report, and Elysium.
Those are good ones.
It's a good one.
Oh, what about like British punk social commentary ones? Clockwork Orange, Train Spotting.
And
A third one.
Sid and Nancy.
I don't know if those are up there in the first two.
Did you make a set of 3 with
Sid and Nancy's? It's what's his name?
About Children of Men.
Yeah, Children of Men would be good.
with Ron Perlman?
No, that's something else. You're thinking.
You're talking City of Lost Children.
Yeah.
Oh,
Children of Men's with the.
with Clive.
Yeah, Owen. Clive Owen.
Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman's one that played Sid Vicious and Sid and Nancy.
Who what would be the third one if you did Love in a 45?
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Probably. What there was something like True.
Or what about a Gene Reno series?
True Romance.
True Romance? Love in a 45, True Romance, and then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Well, if you're doing a Jean Reno trilogy, Godzilla definitely isn't in it.
The Professional.
Probably Ronin.
I don't know. The Professional, Ronin.
Oh, you could do one of the Mission Impossibles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go through my honorable mentions. So the first one, so I was going for space horror because I think space horror is great, but it's kind of hard to do right. And so, or sci-fi horror, basically. So I put Alien, which is, fantastic. Event Horizon, which is like a super great movie. I was actually thinking about another list, a Sam Neill list, where you do Event Horizon, In the Mouth of Madness, and another Sam Neill horror, which I'm sure there is one, but I can't think of it right now. And then the third one I put in there was Annihilation. And I love Annihilation, but it's such a weird ass movie that I think it doesn't really fit with those other two. So that's why I didn't include it in my list. The other next one was Tom Savini special effects. So it's Friday the 13th Part 4, which is one of the better Friday the 13th movies. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Day of the Dead, which if you like Tom Savini, really drippy, rippy horror stuff, like that's a great trilogy right there. Horror comedy with Cabin in the Woods, Shaun of the Dead, and Happy Death Day. Happy Death Day is a really, really fun movie. It is Groundhog Day meets a teenage girl and a serial killer, and it's a lot of fun. You got to see that movie. And the last one is one of my favorite actresses recently, who has just been doing a ton of really cool, fun horror stuff, is Samara Weaving, who is Hugo Weaving's niece, I think. And that is The Babysitter, where she plays the psycho babysitter, but it's like she's babysitting a kid, but it turns out she's also running a death cult, like a satanic cult to raise a demon or something. But it's very horror comedy too. Ready or Not, which is a murderous hide and go seek movie, which is also very funny. And Mayhem, which is a corporate office goes crazy and everybody tries to kill each other, which is also very good. And those are my honorable mentions. Yes. I wanted to do a Western too, but I just couldn't quite make it happen. But Samara Weaving's great. Samara Weaving's one of those actors I feel like probably hasn't really gotten her due. And all three of those movies they're very fun movies and also incredibly bloody movies. So
that makes me think you could do 3 movies with daughters of famous people who became famous in their own right as actresses. Add like Asia Argento and
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, although
yeah.
I think it's actually Aza Argento.
Oh.
And she maybe had sex with minors. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe not.
Are they working in a mine?
Yes. There's a whole thing. Like, look it up. I'm not going to say what happened, but it's a
They
whole
have
thing.
the little hats with the lights on.
Anyway, Brandon, what's the last one you want to talk about?
Okay, so this one is kind of a strange category, but it's just one I called competence. Like there isn't any like dumb things happening or a lot of plot holes, at least not that I've really noticed. they're action movies that are as close to something that could happen in reality. So number one is Heat. Arguably one of the best bank heist scenes on film. Some of the greatest lines, some of the greatest,
I would say inarguably.
Movie score. The music alone still tells me, like, I can go listen to the soundtrack and it still tells me the story. Ronin, one of my all-time favorite De Niro movies, maybe my all-time favorite De Niro movies, and the Bourne Identity. I love the Bourne Identity. I could watch at least the first three anytime.
Yeah, I'm a fan of all those. I think Ronin had a great chase scene. And he was just great. I mean, he just had an amazing cast. Especially considering the era. So just real quickly, so we can get through these, it's Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, John Voight, Tom Sizemore, Amy Brennan.
Heat, not Ronin.
Right, Heat. That's what I said, or what I meant to say.
Okay.
You viewers will know. Amy Brennan, Ashley Judd, McKelty Williamson, Wes Studi, Ted Levine, Dennis Haysbert, otherwise known as the State Farm guy, I think.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman. I forgot Natalie Portman was in it.
Yep.
William Fichtner, Tom Noonan, Hank Azaria. It's very rarely you look at IMDb and you have really famous people that you know basically going all the way down.
Actually, the guy that played the other cop, the black guy that played the other cop, was not the State Farm guy. He's the guy that played Bubba in Forrest Gump.
No, you're not right. It's the State Farm guy. It's Dennis Haysbert.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking of the other guy, the other cop, not the grill guy.
No, right.
Sorry, I don't remember everybody's names. I'm not good with names. I'm good with faces.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm confused. Yeah, the grill guy was the guy was Bubba from Forrest Gump, and State Farm guy was the other cop.
No, you got them switched around.
No, I don't.
I'll bet you $100 right now.
Okay. I'm right, but go ahead. I mean, I'm literally looking at the IMDb page. Yeah,
Anyway.
he probably it's a very violent movie, but not a bloody movie, really.
Yeah, right.
There it's very and it's shot in a very kind of, especially so there was a big shootout in Los Angeles in, I think it was the early 90s.
Yeah, with the two guys with the armor.
Right. And I think this movie was, what year did this come out? This came out in 1995, and I think this would have been after that, and I think it was sort of influenced by that to some degree. But it's very, very violent, and very sort of striking, and yeah, just very, very well shot. Michael Mann.
Like nobody's like there isn't like a lot of toxic masculinity. I mean, there is, but not. No, I mean, it's not in like the Expendables, you know, where like the guy has like a knife with a skull on it or something like that. Like all of them are very like smart, down to earth people. I mean, even the Danny Trejo turns in a very subdued performance.
Oh yeah, I was just going to mention, I forgot Danny Trejo was in it too. He was the original Getaway Driver.
Yeah, it's very good, very good.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. And then we also have Ronin. The one I remember of that is the torture device where Robert De Niro is talking about this way that somebody got information out of him, and it's like this. What does he call it? Do you remember?
The grasshopper.
Is it the grasshopper? And he's like, "What's that? What's that?" He's like, right. That's right. Okay, yeah. By the way, the grasshopper we will probably do on the channel sometime. I find it to be a little sweet, but you know, make your own decisions.
It kind of tastes like one of those Andes mints.
No, it's not a bad cocktail. If you like sweet cocktails, the grasshopper is very good, but I don't know, a little sweet. And I'm sorry, the Bourne Identity. The Bourne Identity has
Matt Damon.
Franca Potenta, who was in Run Lola Run, which is another very good movie, which honestly you almost could have included in this same category. Although I'll tell you, there's another category that existed almost in the 90s where it was like a movie that happens over the course of basically the runtime, like 2 hours or so. And there was a bunch of movies that were kind of like that. There was a Highlander. You just mentioned his name earlier.
Christopher Lambert
movie that was like that, where they're like going into some tunnels to hunt this guy. And it's like just a 2 hour thing of people running around, very action packed and very full and but at the same time, very subdued as far as the scale, not a large scale movie. And Run Lola Run was very good at that.
Yes. Well, in the Bourne Identity, I mean, there isn't like a lot of, as much as I was just talking about Kung Fu movies, there isn't a whole lot of that. You know, he's very practical ways of getting somebody stopped and away from him so he can get away. Ronin's kind of the same thing, like where he ambushes Sean Bean with a cup of coffee. Just it's very good, just very good. I loved it.
Yeah, I think the fight scenes were really well choreographed, and like the scene where they're out at the farmhouse and he uses the birds as a distraction and stuff.
One of the first Clive Owen appearances.
Who does Clive Owen play in that? I didn't even remember he was in that.
The assassin out in the field.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, by the way, the number one lesson to take away from tonight, Sean Bean just cannot get a break. Cannot get a break.
He lives through Ronin.
Does he? I could have sworn Robert De Niro killed him.
Martian.
No, he doesn't kill him. Robert De Niro is the good guy. You remember he's undercover. He makes them get rid of him.
Oh, that's right. He gets fired.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still not a great day for him.
Well, no, but
he got fired.
He's alive still.
It seems like a low bar for having a good day. Like, well, you're alive.
He vomits in that
movie. Yeah, no, I like all those. Just real solid action movies. Where they keep it moving too. Like, I feel like sometimes action movies can get overly like just be action movies. Try to be as close.
Really long, but it doesn't really feel like it.
I think.
Oh my God, that's 2 hours and 50 minutes. That's 2 hours and 50 minutes. Just saying.
On the Bourne Identity is just like, watch how he walks. Watch how Matt Damon walks in that. Just everything's with purpose. Everything he does is for a purpose.
Yeah.
He's just driven to just do the things that he's doing. Like, and when he's sitting there in the cafe explaining, why do I know that, at this altitude I can run flat out for 1.5 miles before I have to start, breathing through my mouth or whatever. Why do I know the license plate numbers of 5 cars out here? And why do I know why that guy, looks like he can handle himself? That guy probably has a knife on him and shit like that, It's just really cool that, like, it's all that spycraft is in his head. He doesn't have to show you he's doing it. He knows he's doing it.
Yeah. So Jim, Heat, Ronin, and the Bourne Identity. Where do you stand?
What's that?
Heat, Ronin, and the Bourne Identity. Where do you stand?
I had a hard time getting through Ronin. I've seen Heat a few times. Like it, not a huge fan. I don't know that there's anything spectacular about the Bourne films, but I love all of them, and I would watch any of them if they were on cable and they just came up, because like Kale was saying, the movies are the actors are so driven. There's so much pace to it. They're really well done for what they are. I think they're very entertaining.
Well, I think
Jeremy Renner's good too.
Well, Kale, I think when you say that Matt Damon moves with purpose, what I would say is the movie moves with purpose. And that's one of those things that can hurt action movies. Is action movies can get bogged down very easily, where you're like, I don't care about this. I mean, not to beat up on the new Matrix movie too much, but it very much gets bogged down to the point where you're just like, why is this scene? Why is this character? Why is any of this happening? Why should I care? And that you don't get that. Honestly, I don't think you get that in any of these movies.
Ronin clearly is moving along. Heat is clearly moving along. It's a little more dramatic, but yeah, they have a pace and they stick to the pace.
Yeah, he stops for a little bit here and there, but it's really the cast is so good it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of people to give screen time to, and a lot of people that sort of deserve that screen time.
Yeah.
The scene at the diner where they're talking. I mean, how can you?
Well, yeah, we should probably. So the scene at the diner is the first time where you had Al Pacino and Robert De Niro on screen, even though they had been doing sort of parallel roles for a very long time. And yeah, it's great. And they sort of tried to recreate that in Righteous Kill, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
And something's going on with Val Kilmer's elbow in that movie. Something's fucked up with his elbow in that movie. I don't know what it is, but it's like out here.
Well, Val Kilmer, they just came out with a documentary of Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer now has he had throat cancer, I think. And he now has to speak using one of the little voice box things.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's bad. It's called oh God. I'll find it. But yeah, he's had some tough times. And Val Kilmer is sort of an interesting character in that he is it's just called Val. I'm sorry, I just found it. Val Kilmer was always thought of as being one of the hard to work with actors. And so his career didn't sort of have the same trajectory that a lot of the people that were kind of in the same position did, for better or worse. But yeah, so the Val documentary, people should probably check that out. It's just, he apparently was videotaping everything from a very young age. So it's just like him, his videotapes when he's on sets and all these other things. Now again, very difficult time speaking because he had the throat cancer.
An excellent Doc Holliday.
He is certainly one of the best Doc Hollidays. All right, Jim, what is your the first one you want to talk about?
So my last one is controversial. It's a Tom Cruise sci-fi trilogy.
This could go a couple of different ways.
Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow, and Minority Report. Oblivion, I'm not a gigantic fan of, but I think it's worth watching. And I actually really like Minority Report, and Edge of Tomorrow is just, I think it's just fun to watch. I think it's a good action movie. I don't know. I think
Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, or All You Need Is Kill, or one of the other names that movie was put out under. Yeah, I like that movie a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I like Emily Blunt a lot. In fact, I like Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, but for a long time it was sort of rumored that Emily Blunt was going to be Captain Marvel, and I was really hoping that she would get it. I thought she would have been a great Captain Marvel.
Maybe she'll get Invisible Woman. There's some rumors about that too.
Oh God, they've been talking about that for 10 years.
You just never know.
Maybe not 10, a long time. They've been talking for many years about John Krasinski and Emily Blunt being, Reed Richards and Sue Richards. But anyway.
Right. So I really don't understand why Minority Report is not considered a better movie than it is. Like, I just think I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I think it's just a well done movie. It's very entertaining. It's engaging. It has a good twist at the end.
Max von Sydow.
What's that?
Max von Sydow.
Love me some Max von Sydow. He saved Judge Dredd single-handedly.
It has Neil McDonough, who is literally the only reason why you should watch the second half of the new American Horror Story season, since that was just a bunch of trash. Jim, I will ignore the fact that you picked a Steven Spielberg movie.
Yes, it's true. I did.
I will be honest. I have not seen Minority Report. The one thing I was going to say is you picked Oblivion. If I was going to do the same list, I probably would have picked War of the Worlds. I don't love War of the Worlds, but I think I like it better than Oblivion. And it's funny because it feels kind of the same slot.
Yeah.
That's the
Thanks a
thing,
lot.
though. Oblivion is like John said it, or Jim said, it's got like a bit of a twist to it at the end when you because like the whole time I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he even doing this? And then at the end you find out, oh wait a minute.
And you
Yeah.
say it just like that.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
So it's entertaining, and there's some really I think some of the design aspects of it are good. It's just not, in sum total, it's not as entertaining as the other two movies on the list for sure.
I got you. Kale, what is your numero uno? Again, we're not really ranking these things, but you know.
Well, of the groups that I put together, I think this is probably the most human. Because I really hope that people watch these movies that we talk about, and specifically this little grouping here is very near and dear to me, and so I'm going to throw them out there. The third one I'm going to say is not so much because I just really needed to fill in, and I wasn't sure what to put there, but then I kind of popped into my head, oh yeah, I remember this one. So anyway, the list of this last list of three is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Stranger Than Fiction, and Punch Drunk Love. And Punch Drunk Love is an Adam Sandler movie where Adam Sandler's not being all Adam Sandler. I guess the main tie-in of the three movies is that there's kind of like a sub romance plot kind of going on in each of them. But that's not really the main thing driving the movie. It's just kind of there. Punch Drunk Love is just one of those. It's weird, kind of in the way that the Time Bandits and the Munchausen movie is like you're never really quite sure where he's at or what he's doing because it's hard to kind of follow, honestly. And I think it's on purpose. Like you can't tell if it's real or not. And on the opposite end of that, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it's basically about a guy who constantly daydreams about being this other person that he really wants to be, but he just isn't. But it's very clear when he goes into those phases of when it becomes unreal. Like you were talking about the rubber fight of the Stretch Armstrong rubber fighter guys. You'll enjoy this fact. There is a scene where he is fighting with another guy over a Stretch Armstrong doll, but it gets like superhero, daydreamy, surreal, and like that just happens all the time in this movie. But then he does end up doing some more adventurous things and becoming more of the person that he wished that he would be. And it's a really good movie. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Punch Drunk Love, take it or leave it. But I just needed that for a filler. Secret Life of Walter Mitty, really, really great movie. It hits on a lot of different levels. There's a lot going on, and it's a thinker. And Stranger Than Fiction is also a twisty movie, and it's kind of opposite of The Martian, where you said that the writer wanted to save his hero, whereas in Stranger Than Fiction, the main protagonist is supposed to die. That's the theme, is that the person who kind of becomes the hero dies. That's just how the story's supposed to go. And in the movie where he kind of figures out, and it is a Will Ferrell movie. And so I don't know, but it's not like a typical Will Ferrell movie. He's Will Ferrell, but it's not him being silly. It's him being a regular person, and just it's a really great movie. And how he deals with when he finally kind of builds up this life that he kind of wanted to. Like but he was more like afraid, or just didn't think about doing these things, I guess. And then
for me, I thought Punch Drunk Love was great. Adam Sandler, I find it almost depressing how well Adam Sandler can act when he tries, since he never seems to try, which I find a little disturbing. But no, I think Punch Drunk Love is great. I think I like Stranger Than Fiction a lot. I have not seen Walter Mitty, but I like the two that I have seen.
You should
And
definitely watch
Stranger Than Fiction has Emma Thompson, or I think she Dame Emma Thompson now, I think.
I believe so.
I believe she is. She's good in it. I didn't remember that Dustin Hoffman was in it.
Yeah, he plays the professor.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I like that one a lot.
And then the love interest in that is
Oh, Maggie Gyllenhaal, yeah, because she owns. Does she own like a bakery or something?
yeah, she's definitely a social justice warrior in that movie too. Tax man.
Jim and Brandon.
So I will say that I've never seen any of these movies because there's no kung fu, there's no elves, and there's no laser guns, but I'm willing to try them.
But it does have Will Ferrell, who was an elf. So
That's true. And
it's elf adjacent.
And I will also say, coming back to Stretch Armstrong, that I had a very formative event with Stretch Armstrong villain, I think. As a child, one of my sisters
Like a sexual awakening, or
tempted me into poking a pen into it, and it was a slow death for the Stretch Armstrong villain leaking out with the
I
pen
can
brick.
imagine.
Hard lesson to learn.
Yeah,
Brandon.
I know I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love. I'm not sure about the other two.
By the way, if you do like Adam Sandler actually acting, which he does, I think when the moon is full on, just the right day and the sun hits the trees just correctly. The most recent one was Uncut Gems, which was, I have not seen Uncut Gems yet, but everybody talks about it. It says it's a very, very good movie, and I will watch it one of these days. I'm going to move on to my number one, or this really is my number one, because this is what made me thought of the whole list. And that is the Taylor Sheridan trilogy. And that is Sicario, Hell or High Water, and Wind River. Has anybody seen these movies?
They're the first one. I saw Sicario.
And I've seen Wind River.
Okay.
I don't know if I've heard the other two.
So Sicario, you've seen Hell or High Water. We talked about Hell or High Water. So Sicario is basically about a police officer who's sort of brought in and to help the CIA against the cartels. The main thing with it, well, I'll go through the sort of thing. So Hell or High Water is about a couple of brothers that are robbing banks to try and pay off their mother's house so she doesn't lose her house. And Wind River is about the disappearance and murder of a Native American woman on a Native American reservation. The way I sort of describe Taylor Sheridan movies, they're sort of like guy movies, but for guys that have brains. So there is action, there is, there is masculinity in these movies, but it is in a way that there's thought involved. There are, you have to think about things. I think all three movies, and I was thinking about this as I came up with the list, I think they all sort of deal with this idea of revenge versus justice. And it's something that sort of is a motif through Taylor Sheridan, of people that sort of say they're seeking justice, but you can't decide if they're seeking justice or if they're seeking revenge. And it's never really, I don't think any of these movies really clarify entirely whether or not these guys are these sort of justice seekers as they sort of purport to be, or whether or not they're just people that are trying to overpower people and seek revenge. And I think that's an interesting concept, especially considering sort of the state that masculinity is in right now, where we all sort of kind of justify our masculinity in one way or the other. And I think he does it in a way that is very, very interesting. I don't know. You guys have all seen Sicario.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of Sicario?
Sicario is good. Is that the one with the helicopter chasing the motorbike?
I don't know. It's the one with Benicio del Toro as the sort of
Hitman
fixer. as the Sicario.
Oh no, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I have not seen
Definitely
any
more
of these three.
mainstream. Sorry.
I've heard of Sicario.
I would recommend all three to no end. These three movies, it is a great triple feature because they're dealing with kind of the same issues.
Hell or High Water's got Chris Pine in it, right?
Yeah, it's Chris Pine and oh my
And that
god, I
black
think
guy.
Ben. Of course, I can't think of his freaking name.
He was in 310 to Yuma.
Yes, he was. He's a really good like character actor. Ben Foster. I'm sorry, Ben Foster.
Yeah, there you go. I was thinking Farmer, but yeah.
And Ben Foster is really great at playing quiet, crazy, really well. He plays very, very like low key. I could kill everybody everywhere. And then Jeff Bridges is obviously in it, and it's got a bunch of really, really good like smaller parts. Like they go to this one place and they have like this restaurant basically has two choices. And the one guy's like, well, could I get this? And she's like, well, nobody ever asked for that. And it's just very like small town, kind of like, that's just, we don't do that. Like we do this or this, and that's your choices.
It's very Westernish.
Yeah, but it's like modern Western, and it's very, so, from a sort of a social justice perspective, it's very anti-corporate. The banks are clearly the bad guy. I mean, the bank robbers are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but the banks themselves are the villains. And even the way the bank robbers treat the bank employees, they make it very clear, like, we're not robbing you. We're robbing the bank. And we don't want to hurt you. We don't want to hurt anybody. We're here to take the bank's money, which is insured. And it's just, I don't know.
Like the heat speech.
Yeah, like he.
Yeah, but these guys are doing it for it's hard to describe. I can't recommend these movies enough for everybody. And the heroes are all, very much sort of masculine men, but they're also all very flawed, and they're all very sort of complicated. And yeah, I don't know. I love all those movies. I think that Taylor Sheridan has a great aesthetic. Go ahead, Kale. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it's still pretty fresh in my mind because I probably saw that sometime last month, I think.
Which one is it, Hell or High Water or
no? Wind River. And,
Wind River.
Okay, so it's Hawkeye trying to solve the murder of the Punisher, and
with the Scarlet Witch showing up.
Yeah, with the Scarlet Witch showing up, and basically, I want to say this: the end of that movie is definitely justice. You can call it revenge, but it is definitely justice.
Right. And so, Kale, don't say what happens because I don't want to spoil it. But no, you're right. I think you're maybe right, maybe wrong. And I think at the end of that movie is the main character doing justice, or does he want to get revenge on that person? And so he's cloaking it in justice. And I don't think that's clear in the movie. I think Jeremy Renner does a great part in that. I think everybody's great in it. The father of the girl who's murdered is like, it's again, it takes place on a Native American reservation, but it's also very Americanized because everything's Americanized. The person is sort of trying to match, all this sort of the loss of identity of Native Americans in this country with his grief. And it's a heartbreaking role. Very heartbreaking.
Mike and I talked about this before in the social justice aspect of it. I don't think people realize how many Native American women disappear, are subject to violence and kidnapping, and because people just don't talk about it because it's on a reservation. And if they knew the actual numbers, I mean, you would want to do something about it.
It's very true. Native American women are at tremendous risk, not just to be victims of crime, but to have those crimes not be sufficiently investigated or solved, which is, kind of heartbreaking and horrible. So it's interesting. I feel like all of Taylor Sheridan's movies, you come away feeling worse and kind of better at the same time, which I think is how you kind of should feel coming away from a movie. You feel like, okay, the characters in this movie got some level of justice or revenge. but at the same time, the underlying causes for all this stuff has not been solved at all. And so I think there's sort of a medium catharsis with all Taylor Sheridan movies. I mean, the end of Sicario, for example, Benicio del Toro does his thing, but he doesn't solve any of the problems with drugs. None of the problems are solved. He gets sort of his catharsis, but we as viewers and as, citizens of this country, we don't get catharsis. And I think that's sort of the point of Sheridan's movies, is it's sort of limited level of closure, where you get individual closure, but en masse, we don't really get that kind of closure. So that's why I love his movies.
So I have a book plug on the Wind River. And
I'm sorry, we don't allow butt plugs on here, Jim.
Right. On the issue of Native American women disappearances, Frank Herbert, who we've talked about a lot recently, has a book, Soul
Frank
Catcher.
who?
Right.
Soul Catcher.
Soul Catcher. It's not one of his most popular books, but it's really topical before its time, and it has to do with that topic and revenge versus justice, and it's worth checking out. It's a kind of disturbing, for sure.
All right, Brandon, I think we've gone. I'm glad we closed this down to only 3, because if we had gone to 4, we'd be here another hour and a half. Brandon, do you have any final thoughts on any of the movies you talked about? Any of the movies you want to recommend, or just anything else?
No, obviously no movie list was ever going to be, 100% all of us saw all of them. Kale's probably the one that saw the most of them. But I will echo what he's saying. Give them a shot. They're all worth it. I mean, even if I made the list of like bad movies that I just didn't like, I think they'd probably be worth seeing at least.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, I mentioned the Tofu V Hut in Iowa City, and kind of on Brandon's point, a lot of movies, if you haven't even heard of, if they came up on this episode, you should probably take the time to watch them, because they have at least something for someone. And
if you watch them in our order, I think you'll be happy.
Absolutely.
All right, Kale.
I think we covered pretty much all the bases here. I guess it depends on what you're looking for. If you want a certain genre of movies, then hopefully we gave you some ideas here. That's about all I got to say about it.
I agree. I can't recommend the Taylor Sheridan movies enough. I think the guy's a genius. He's got a show on AMC now called Yellowstone, which I have not completed. I'm about halfway through the first season, but I'm enjoying it.
Good thing.
Yeah. That's all we got for you today. Come back next week where we've got a bigger, sort of maybe weightier topic that we'll be talking about, which will not be controversial at all. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and have a good drink. Have a good day.
Goodbye, my friend.